Hi, Jamie. Thanks so much for joining us virtually today.
Hi, Brady. It's good to be here.
You're calling in from Atlanta?
From my home in Atlanta, Georgia.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate it. Obviously, you are one of our 2007 Grand Finals winners,
Yeah.
and also one of our committee of advisors for MONC. So we're really excited to hear everything you've had going on. We've really appreciated your support through the years, ever since 2007. Um, we really appreciate your guidance on so many of these kind of new problems and situations that the opera world is facing. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts on all of this.
Yeah, well, I think it's something that we're going to benefit by coming together and figuring out the solutions going forward. So I'm happy to be a part of it.
Absolutely. To start, a lot of our MONC community is familiar with your competition journey, since it was documented in The Audition, the Susan Fromke documentary. What other moments, maybe off screen, do you remember with our MONC volunteers or just from that audition season?
I mean, quite honestly, the memories that I have of that particular experience, most of them are completely the ones that were behind the scenes or the ones that may not have made it into the actual documentary. I mean, everything from having dinner served to us in the what's the little room, the Belmont room, is
The
that
Belmont Room, yeah.
the Belmont room. And we're sitting there, and I'm sitting across from Alex Schrader, and we're all just like having dinner, and like it's in between, probably like this lecture with these people and doing like a
The
little
coachings
coaching,
and all of that.
stuff like that. We're in the middle of having dinner, and Alec and I are talking, and all of a sudden we just felt this like boom mic like just enter into the conversation.
Yes.
I'll never forget. Alec just started talking about random stuff. I mean, he's like, yeah, I was thinking about getting a septum piercing, and like just random things to try and make them move.
Yes.
But it was a wild experience in so many ways, because not only was it for me, it was my first time at the Met. I had never actually
Wow.
seen a show at the Met. I had never been inside of the Met. Like, it was really, for me, like the first step in. So that in and of itself was kind of amazing. But to have a camera crew, and Susan would call us and say, "Hey, could we stage you guys having breakfast tomorrow?"
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so like I remember I had breakfast with Kira Duffy in her hotel room, and of course all of this had to happen before we were actually like going up to the Met for the day worth of stuff. So I think I remember waking up at 6 in the morning to like
I
get
was
into
just going to
makeup.
say that's an intense schedule to begin with, that week of coachings and everything. So I can't imagine.
But I mean, it was just, at that point, I was 25 at the time. I think I had a lot more energy than I do these days in general. So it was just, I mean, number one, being in New York, really, it was one of the first few times that I had been in New York, being at the Met, getting to work with these people, I knew some of the people in the competition, and of course, getting
Mhm.
to know the other competitors. The camera crews were absolutely just like a part of the experience.
Right.
But it was a part of a really exciting experience.
For
Um,
sure. Did you
yeah,
end up seeing your first Met performance that week?
I did. It was La Traviata on the old Zeffirelli set.
Wow.
Casimira Stoyovana and Jonas Kaufman, who at the time wasn't like Jonas Kaufman. I think this might have been one of his first contracts across the pond at the Met.
Wow.
It was incredible, and then we did the finals on that set. So to be able to see the show
Right.
that it was in, and then to be able to see to be on that set and interact with the set while I was singing the witches aria. It was just
Right.
really, really cool.
Right. Well, speaking of interesting sets, you were just able to perform in the big tent down at Atlanta Opera as part of their Mezzo extravaganza. And then you also just did a performance with the American Pops and the National Symphony Orchestra. United in Song was the program. Uh,
Yes, yes,
there
exactly.
definitely is a the show must go on spirit making these events happen. And I was just curious if you could tell us about those experiences and what they've been like for you.
Oh, totally. Well, the United in Song was actually the first one. The film of it debuted on PBS on New Year's Eve.
Okay.
So it was debuted later than the mezzo concert, but it was the first engagement that I had back, and it was incredible. Both experiences were just incredible in so many ways. Um, I was just in tears, honestly, when I was with the American Pops. Just even with a reduced orchestra, being able to sing, to sing with other musicians, to make sounds that come out of my face, that other musicians come together to help support. It just
Even
it
we were talking about missing the vibration of live music, and the judges recently and I were having a conversation about just how that is such a profound experience that everyone is missing right now.
Oh, totally. I think that it's such a part of at least my identity as a human being. I try to make myself a well-rounded person. I have other identity, parts of my identity. But being a singer has been such a focus of my life since 2000, when I entered into college and decided to start taking voice lessons. And it just to have such a lapse in that portion of my identity, it's been really difficult. And so to be able to come back to that was just an amazing thing. Also, it's my therapist and I were talking about this. The vagus nerve actually is activated by something like opera singing. So there is
Interesting.
actually this kind of healing serotonin kind of experience that singers get, that I think contributes to the rush that we feel when we're on stage and how we feel afterwards. I mean, there's a good reason that I can't go to sleep until 4 a.m. after performance,
Absolutely. Right.
you know, and it's not just the adrenaline rush that's going, it is actually an access to the vagus nerve, which is way in the back, through your throat. So
Wow, I
it,
haven't heard that quite that way before.
yeah, so it is really, I mean, it is a physical feeling that I hadn't felt at that point. That was September. So, more than half a year. So yeah, it was just incredible in that aspect. But then the other aspect that really was just unbelievable to me in both of these concerts was the attention to detail in terms of the safety of every person who was a part of it, of every audience member that was there. I mean, with the Atlanta Opera, they actually they've been working with Dr. Carlos Del Rio, who happens to be the head epidemiologist at Emory, who is
Okay.
kind of heading up a lot of, there are trials coming out of Emory, for the
Right.
vaccine and stuff. So he happens to be a massive opera fan. So he got on board with the Atlanta Opera to help them come up with the safest possible setup for everyone
Wow.
involved. And, there are a lot of hoops to go through. We have to wear masks where we wouldn't want to wear masks, but that being said, to be able to do this and to do it safely in a way that enables us to be able to perform and audience members to be able to be there, man, having a live audience, that's what a luxury.
Right, it really is. I know our 2020 grand finals winner, Gabrielle Tag, was also a part of that and,
Yeah.
also shared that experience. Those
I love
Metzos
having it.
representing. That's
No,
great.
it's been so much fun getting to know her, and of course she's another Georgia girl, so like we've got that Georgia strong thing going on. But
Right, and she also sang The Witch for the grand finals concert.
yeah,
So
she told me, and she sang it on the mezzo concert as well. So it's just really
amazing.
cool. Yeah, I love it when I love it when I hear other mezzos bring in the witches aria, just because it that aria for me, I think through the Met competition actually
Mhm.
was a game changer. Like I specifically recall auditioning for Gay Letha that summer. I was at Opera Theater of St. Louis and then Tanglewood, and I did my first audition for Gay Letha at Opera Theater of St. Louis, and I ended up singing Va, which is, the mezzo national anthem.
Yeah, of course.
And she was very polite, very nice. Said thank you. I said thank you. I didn't hear anything else. Great, cool, whatever. And then I got to Tanglewood. It was about 3 weeks later, and they had the sign up sheet to sing for Gay Letha. And I thought, I've already sung for her, so I don't know, I don't want to waste her time. But then again, here's another opportunity. Why don't I bring in something else?
Right.
And I had just been working on the Witch's aria to the point where I felt it was prepared enough for me to bring it in. And I sang it for her, and she stopped me at the end of it. And she said, "Before you leave, I want to tell you, I have in my notes that you sang Va a couple of weeks ago. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't remember that. But this aria for you, I will remember this. And you need to audition for the Met competition this year." And I did, and I won. So
What an amazing moment.
yeah,
Wow.
so that aria, it just, especially for mezzos who are younger, who may not fit in the Mozart, Strauss kind of category that a lot of mezzos do.
Sure.
Bigger voiced mezzos, that is a really great aria that number one shows off the range, number two gets your personality out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it gives you a lot of permissions, I think, in the character that, you know, somebody like Carabino doesn't exactly have, although Carabino has plenty of fun
Right.
aspects of his character. But for me, it was really a game changer. So it was just really cool and kind of full circle to hear Gabby singing it, especially on the Mezzo concert. I was like,
Right.
yeah,
There's so much room to play in that role and to make it your own. And we get to see who you are as an artist, which in our competition is such a vital thing to, you know, trying to get to know you and what you do and what you want to be doing. And so
absolutely,
that's
absolutely. You
really
know, as a young 25-year-old, I'm not going to call myself a dramatic mezzo, but a, you know, full lyric, you know,
sure.
mezzo, at least at the time, you know, that I would go as far as to say that that aria was what won me the Met competition. I
Mhm.
loved my other aria. It's a beautiful Privason from Giulio Cesare. It's
Right.
a beautiful song. You can show some real nuance in it, and I think that that was, you know, that added to it. But I think the thing that pushed it over the top, hands down, was doing the aria that I actually loved the most.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah, it's there is something special that happens when there is kind of a marriage between singer and repertoire, and it shows, and it gives you those home run moments of, you know, winning the Met competition. So,
totally, hopefully.
another role that has brought you a lot of joy, seemingly, is you've performed it many times in many places, is Julia Child with Bon Appetit.
Yes.
And you recently got to bring that not to a live audience, but most recently a recording with Houston Grand Opera. And we're really used to seeing opera recorded thanks to Met Live in HD and other recordings. But how is this different, bringing it to the small screen?
Oh, it was incredible. So to back up, actually, before it went to Houston and Austin Opera and Philly, um, Ryan McKinney, who was also on my year for the Met competition,
Right.
who we ended up being in the Houston Grand Opera studio, and I've been friends with him and his wife for, you know, since that time. Ryan had really started to do a whole bunch of virtual filmmaking. I believe that a family member of his had some actual like professional grade film equipment, and so he started to toy around with that. And we had done this Corona Dämmerung is what we called it. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
It's basically, you know, the entrance bit in the second scene of Rheingold, that's Fricka and Wotan. And so we did it kind of pandemic style. Like,
Hmm.
we were talking with each other, you know, via FaceTime and all this. Like, I'm literally spitting toothpaste at one point because you know, so we had so much fun with that, that Ryan came back and said, "Hey, do you have any other projects that you think would be good for this kind of format?" And I was like, boy, do I ever. Here's this Bon Appetit I've been doing for a while. I think it would translate really well. And he and Tanya took a look at it. Tanya also was a director on this. And they were like, yeah, absolutely. They just happened to live about 3.5 hours up the road in Asheville, North Carolina.
Wow.
I'm in Atlanta. So I drove up there, and they, God bless them, they put me up in some housing, and we, you know, safety protocols all the way, you know, for COVID safety, but we filmed it in their kitchen. And it was just such a cool experience because I'm so used to this being this Bon Appetit in particular is just a really complicated show when it comes to the cooking element.
Hmm.
It was really, really complicated to learn, but luckily, that was years ago. But even still, it's like, okay, now at this point, I have to time out like separating the egg whites. And now this, I need to make sure that the
Wow.
butter is this temperature so it will actually melt, because I have between pages 2 and 10 for that to melt, for the chocolate to melt. Like, it's all very, very timed.
Right.
And there have definitely been live performances where that hasn't exactly gone off.
I can imagine.
Oh my gosh. But being able to do it on film, we had so much freedom to be able to like reset and do things and kind of take our time. And there's a whole blooper reel at the end of it, which if you guys haven't seen, I hope you get a chance to see, because we just spent the handful of days we were doing this cracking up.
Yes,
Like,
it looked like
it
a lot of fun.
oh my gosh, it was so much fun. So yeah, it was. We were delighted when Houston picked it up, and it's gone on from there. And I'm hoping more will pick it up as well, because it's just a delightful little amuse-bouche of a piece.
That's the perfect word for it. That's great. You work with a lot of innovative people in the arts. You're no stranger to collaboration, and how important that is in becoming a professional artist. And you work with many contemporary composers. What do you think we can expect for the future of classical singing once we get through these days of the dark stages?
Well, I've been saying from the very beginning of this, if you look back at the Spanish flu that hit the world 100 years ago,
Sure.
what came immediately after that was just a renaissance in terms of the arts, not just in opera and art song and stuff like that. I mean, the world truly just like warp speed shot forward in terms of innovation in the arts. And so I fully expect that to be happening. And I expect that to be happening not just because of the historical, data there, but because of what I'm seeing.
Hmm.
Um, what I love about new music and innovative art is that we get to give voice to the stories of our time. And I really want more of that. I love, love, love singing my Verdi and Wagner and whatever else I do. I think that there is still a lot to learn from that, a lot of commentary to be given on these classical composers that we are very used to hearing. But there's something incredibly magical about being able to see a piece that's written about Julia Child, or a piece that is written about Alzheimer's, or things that are really, really, really meaningful right now. I still, to this day, I think the most moving piece of music that I've ever done in my life, the one that had the greatest impact on me as an artist, and also on all of the audience members, and I can say that because I had people reaching out to me for weeks after this, was doing Dead Men Walking. And this is an opera that is about, you know, lethal injection and grace, even amidst, a killer. And these are very contemporary things, but they are things that really shot to the heart of everybody who watched and everybody who was on stage. I promise you that. And
Right.
so to be able to do something that means something real to the people who are in the audience, that's just there's no experience quite like that. And so
Right.
I love the idea of fostering more of that, whether it be through recital music, concert, opera, whatever. There's so many different ways we can tell so many different stories, and
Right.
that's what I'm here for.
And I've heard it said that this time for some of these creators really feels like those cars that you used to pull back and then they kind of launch forward. And it feels like we're forcing these, formidable forces of art backwards and on hold, and then they're just going to take off as soon as we're able to put them in creative spaces again.
I can totally see that. Quite honestly, we were speaking just after the inauguration, and when I heard Amanda Gorman's poem, like, the first thing I thought was, I need to find a composer.
Hmm.
Like, I need to look through her works. I need to see is it possible? Can we get the rights? Can you know, would she be willing to write something for somebody? You know, like
Right.
her words are so brilliant, so timely, so meaningful right now. You know,
She so
and
instantly touched everybody who was watching that. I mean, you knew it was kind of history in the making when as soon as she started to speak. I just was totally overwhelmed.
I've got chills right now
Mhm.
just literally remembering it. And so I reached out. I was like, okay, I'm going to throw this up on Twitter. I'm going to see if anybody has any suggestions. People were pouring in suggestions. I very particularly wanted to reach out to a composer of color. Felt
Mhm.
very, very strongly about that. And so I put out a little an inquiry to a composer whose music I felt really would meld well with her kind of aesthetic. And you know, this is somebody that I had not personally heard of, but whose music was, you know, done by friends of mine, you know. And they wrote back, they were so kind, but they wrote back and they were like, yeah, right now I'm actually, the commission plate is really full, like it's, and I'm sitting there going, yes,
Yes.
awesome. Because you know, even if I don't get this person for that, and quite honestly, she, it might be impossible to be able to get the rights to be able to do it anyway, but even if that is not the case, this person whose voice I have just learned of through
Mhm.
this experience, their commission plate is full, which means we get all of this art coming out of them coming up.
Yes.
And I'm so excited about that. I want to sing their music. You
Me
know,
too.
I want to, and this is one of the pieces that has clicked into me during the pandemic, is that I've spent so much of my time on the road and in this industry doing a lot of music that we all know, you know, the operas that we all know. And I really think that we're going to have like just an influx of incredible voices writing things that are going to be talked about in history books. I really believe that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I don't want to take too much more of your time. I do just want to close out um, thinking about our young singers and all of those that we've seen come through MONC this year. You've been a real role model for them in embracing individual artistry, and you've performed at such a high level in many genres. What advice do you have for them who are just starting out at this uncertain time?
The first thing that comes to mind is one step at a time. Because I feel like this generation of singers, they're going to be bearing the brunt of the difficulty with this
Mhm.
pandemic situation. Um, and I hate that. I
Right.
really hate that. But at the same time, I'm also talking with my fellow colleagues in our industry, everyone from, you know, general directors to casting directors and conductors and all sorts of people. Um, and they're not forgetting. They're not forgetting that this new generation, they're, everybody seems very cognizant that this new generation is going to need some extra help up, because we're all going to need that on some level. The whole like one step at a time, I'm telling you, like there are days that are just fine for me and I go, and then a week later I fall apart. It's just like the COVID formula to life, I think, in a way. And so there's unity in that struggle. And I just would encourage them to keep taking steps forward, keep investing in their own artistry, keep on sifting through what makes them unique, what makes them, what turns on their creative brain when they're sitting down with a score or piecing through new music. Like what, whatever lights your brain up, that's exactly what the audience is going to be like.
Yes.
Yeah. You know,
Yes.
so this is work that we can do, and this is the work that I've invested myself in this time. Has really been getting closer to my creative process and learning to trust my own intuition in that way. And so that's exactly what I would encourage them to do. You don't have to, all you have to do is carve out time,
Mhm.
intentional time, to be able to sit down and do that. And so, in a world where everything is difficult right now, that is one of the things that is bringing me calm, is
Mhm.
to be able to sit down and do that. And I would totally suggest, like, just invest that time, because you will never ever be at a deficit in your life for sitting down with that time. Even if this isn't the career that you end up going into,
Mhm.
you will be a better person because you gave yourself that time to be able to invest in what creatively turns you on.
Right.
What develop that within yourself. That's a powerful thing, I think, for humans in general, even if it isn't their career. And if
Yeah,
it
that
is your
spark.
career, yeah, and if it is your career, amazing.
Right.
Like,
Right.
so there are silver linings here. Take those and take one step at a time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being so generous with yourself, with your time. It really means the world to us to have supporters like you all around the country. So it was
Thank
great to
you.
catch up.
It's good to get to talk to you.
Take care.
Yeah, you too.